one of those now this hour, shall we? Njeri Maina is the Kirinyaga woman rep, and she joins us in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, and thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Care first, pay later is a big deal. It has plunged, the idea around the conversation has plunged a lot of people into distress and turmoil. That is going towards the Legislative Assembly at this point then is necessary for us to have a look at. But before we do that, Dennis is going to welcome you with today's proverb, and we'd love your interpretation.
So today we're in Cape Verde, beautiful country, beautiful beaches, beautiful people. Our economy is pegged on tourism. So a lot of tourists visit the country. That helps push the economy, as well as the citizens who live outside the country and send back remittances. Remember that to deal with inflation, because they consider themselves closer to Europe, so their currency is actually pegged to the euro to help deal with inflation. But let's go to the proverb. He who travels values home. How would you interpret it?
I think I'd interpret it in the perspective that when you're away from the people that you love, you actually get to value the time you spend with them, the love they give to you, the comfort they give to you. Because sometimes we're like, oh, Kenya is like this, etc. And then you actually go to the US, the UK, and you're like, oh, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
So it's the people. And for me, home is the people that you love, the people that you care for. It's not that it is because it's Kenya. It's because this is where my family is, the people I care about. So you value that when you're away, and you miss it.
True.
Indeed.
That's it.
You've been very busy lately. And I mean, along the course of the last 3.5 years, one of the things that bothers a lot of people today in the state of healthcare is that you cannot be admitted in hospital. We have horror stories of people who died while waiting to be admitted, women giving birth on the floor outside the hospital, people who were not administered treatment because they didn't pay up. We have even greater stories of folks who unfortunately passed away in hospital, and their bodies are not released for their loved to bury them because there's a bill in hospital. You've then come up with a bill that says, you know what, how about we care now and pay later? Where is that coming from?
This is a bill that I initiated immediately I got elected. Like when I got sworn in, I took oath of office. It is the first thing that I actually started working on, drafting, working with the legal department and all. And because I had done a lot of pro bono work around grieving families whose loved ones had been detained in facilities. I think the highlight of that case, some of the matters I did was Kelvin's case, and Kelvin was detained for nearly an year. His mother would call me every single time we had a court mention, crying on the other end of the line, distressed. I think because I lived that experience with those families. I had to update them. No, we've had this court mention. The court says this. No, they've not agreed to release. They had actually done several home visits. Kelvin's family was a squatter family. They were living in, the means of living were below average. They're what you'd call underprivileged.
Right.
They had actually seen the situation. They had analyzed it. They had done filing statements, financial statements and all that. There is no way they could raise that amount of money. They had done harambes to the very end, and the neighbors could no longer contribute to that. So we were in the courtrooms for nearly a year, fighting for Kelvin to be laid to rest by his family. Unfortunately, he was an A student, a medical student, graduated, couldn't find a job, started doing a boda business. Then, unfortunately, he was hit by a vehicle on Thika Road. And for me, it is dignifying these families. You want to humiliate them further when they are grieving. I don't think there's anything worse you can do to a family that is grieving. And it is not a matter of won't pay. They're just not able to. They're not. Yeah. So that is the rationale behind the bill. It was a lived experience for me because of the work that I did and seeing those families. And I thought, well, now that I'm a member of parliament, what can I do for these other families that perhaps are not even able to reach out to an advocate who can represent them pro bono?
Right.
I mean, it is a story of very many families in the country. It is not the first time. The story that you've just given, even today as we speak, it's a story that touches a family somewhere when it comes to bodies being detained. But even while at that, one asks the question, apart from making it an offense, how do we deal with the problem of access to healthcare in an affordable manner? Because that's where rubber meets the road.
And we've had that discussion, when this bill came up for debate on the floor, because we claim to have universal health coverage. But the actual situation is that it isn't working for many Kenyans. And we are, as a parliament, alive to that and pushing to have a fund for emergencies and also for terminal illnesses like cancer and the likes. And those are things we must fix. But I asked myself, what can I do as we try to fix the long term to alleviate the pain of those families? And that is why I thought this bill is a good initiative. And before we fix the long term issues, we need at least to cater for those families that need access to emergency services. We remember the story of baby Maina, the one who had a fork jembe, whose mom couldn't raise Kenya shillings 20,000. And 20,000 may be pocket change for a number of Kenyans. It is a lot of money for so many Kenyans. Even 1,000 bob is a lot of money. And you think from a human perspective that child, it was a baby, it was unjustifiable by any humanity level to deny such a child medical care because the mother is poor. And the perspective of this bill is also pushing to ensure that hospital facilities do not demand prepayment prior to admitting emergency cases. If baby Maina had been admitted, perhaps he'd be here. He'd be going home to his mother, going to school like other children. But unfortunately, that is not the case. If it were a child of someone who was well endowed, perhaps they'd be alive because they could raise the 20,000 Kenya shillings. Perhaps the mother could not even have friends who would raise that amount on a short notice. So for me, I think it is a humane perspective, and we've had comparative analysis of other legislations in various countries in the world, Canada, Uganda. Uganda have the provision for non-detention of bodies. Can you imagine? We are far behind in terms of that. And our courts have decided in regard to that, in regard to emergency cases, in regard to detention of dead bodies. And the rationale that the courts have given is that even if you detain a dead body for 10, 20 years, you are never going to sell it for monetary value.
So when you hear, obviously this is not just a bill that you sat in Parliament and said, okay, let me do this. Obviously a lot of research that goes into it. When you hear the reasoning from medical facilities as to why they make these demands, what is that, and does it make sense?
From my lived experience, and I've given an example of Kelvin's case, that they had taken financial statements. They had visited the family home several times. They were actually aware. The hospital was aware. They had the facts, the prima facie evidence that this family could not be able to raise the 1.2 million Kenya shillings. That they had actually done harambes to the very end of their capacity. So for me, I think also there's a bit of like a lack of empathy for these families from some of the hospital facilities that we have. We've seen that a number of these cases arise from particular facilities. And I think when you have actually done a financial analysis and you're certain that they're not saying they cannot pay, they're just not able to pay. When you've detained a body for nearly a year, I mean, that must tell you something. When the family is like borrowing transport to come to the hospital facility to beg you to release their loved ones so they can lay them to rest, it must speak to your humanity. And we really must question, even when hospital facilities are administering these services, no one checks the medication you've been given. Have you actually been given that medication? You know, the oxygen. I remember there was a matter that was raised that a bed at a certain facility was being charged 85,000 a night. You know, I mean, even the best hotels in Kenya, average good hotels, 35,000 a night. So this exploitation of Kenyans, has anyone authenticated that bill to actually check that, oh, this person actually like spent or accumulated this XYZ amount? And nobody checks them. There's not checks and balances. If you admit a loved one to hospital, you just told today they've been administered with this. There was this, XYZ. I mean, the complexity of the matters for many Kenyans, they don't understand those things. So I do feel that also hospital facilities need to be alive to the situation and to be cognizant of that. And they do have a policy. They just don't release bodies. They do have a policy and a mechanism to check the financial situation. Just like a foundation like M-Pesa Foundation like does a family background check and all that and financial analysis before offering a full scholarship. So why then keep holding on to the body, yet you know that this family can't pay?
Well, sure. That creates in terms of how one would look at hospital facilities as a business. This is my business. I'm here to make money. I'm here to look at my bottom end, and that's pretty much it. How are we with this bill in place? Are we anticipating a situation where hospitals might just be forced not to serve Kenyans? Because at the end of the day, they equally don't want to incur losses. And how then would the bill address itself to that?
Now, the provision for emergency services, you know, it actually creates an offense if you decline as a facility or the person in charge of a facility to admit an emergency patient, you know, for terms or for issues like maybe minor health issues that are not critical cases. People have options, you know, that if a hospital declines or says they don't want to offer the services, it is not a crime. You know, it has not been addressed by the bill. But for emergency services, imagine like there's been an accident, you know, and people have been really grievously hurt and they've been rushed to a facility. I mean, how do you start to demand prepayment before you save their lives?
Right.
Then the cost of, you know, the life, as you're waiting for the money, someone might die. They might cause or have morbidity. They might have maybe aggravated medical issues.
Yeah.
So this bill is alive to the reality of the situation. If you want to demand prepayment of funds prior to administering critical emergency care, it is an offense, and the person giving those instructions will be liable to a fine of up to Kenya shillings 3 million. And members have actually said during the committee stage, we might up that, you know, because human life must come first.
Yeah.
If I'm paying for a service, but then you're saying, well, pay first before I administer critical care, and I die in the process of waiting
How
to
do you
raise
get-
the funds. I mean, really, it beats the point of why I actually came to get the
charges.
critical care in the first place. Yeah.
So
So it is logic.
In drafting the bill, definitely public participation, hospitals are integral to that conversation. And what are they saying? How have they responded to that?
You know that this bill, I said I initiated it immediately after
Yes.
I got sworn in. That is 2022. And it just came up for the second reading the other day. So that tells you we've had a lot of a back and forth about it. Initially, the bill like catered for both public and private hospital facilities. But then we had like a back and forth about it, amending and all that. And now the bill only speaks to public hospital facilities. Although there's been conversation that at committee stage, there are people who, members who might be interested to have it cater for both public and private facilities.
Is it because the public facilities are the culprits by and large when it comes to something like this?
Yeah. I do believe that I did not really quite understand why there was like a pushback to exclude private facilities. The committee might have had a rationale behind it. I didn't agree with it, but I thought, well, at least we have the public facilities. I thought in terms of negotiations and seeing the bill come to the floor, I knew that at the committee stage we'll be able to have members bring in the private facilities. Yeah. So I really fought for this bill to even get to the floor. Yeah.
When we talk about people cannot pay, that in the near future, it's unforeseeable that they will even be able to get the kind of money that is required. It doesn't take away from the work that the facility has done. But then they're also asking the question, and does this come up for debate? How do they solve that issue? Because it's a monetary one, and essentially there's a hole then there in what they're supposed to then be able to sort out. And while we obviously understand that you don't want a situation where your loved one is kept, just on the looking at all of it, then you wonder, okay, so how do they meet their obligation as well?
So the rationale behind the detention of dead bodies in hospital facilities and the decisions by the High Court, the lower magistrate court, is that one, a bill accrued while a hospital facility is attending to a patient is a debt like any other. They can pursue the same, like the way creditors pursue debt to an estate of a deceased person. So once the liabilities are paid off, the creditors are now settled through that. So the law is very clear that hospitals are not detainment facilities. They are not gazetted detainment facilities. Every Kenyan has a right to dignity. That right does not abate upon death. So the legal framework is very clear about that. It is actually an illegality that hospital facilities or mortuaries perpetuate by detaining dead bodies. And that is why when those matters go to court, there is no single matter that has been decided against the family of a loved one. Because if I owe you money and I pass on, you have a right to claim that debt from my estate. So then the determination of a can't pay, won't pay, if my estate is actually able to pay off the debt that I have accrued as a human being from my medical expenses or any other, then you can actually claim it. So they do have a civil legal means to pursue the monies that have been accrued by a deceased person, and also to ensure that people don't take advantage of this. And that is why I still say it is a matter of can't pay. It's not a won't pay thing. If someone cannot pay, even if you were to auction them, they're not able to pay.
Right.
It is just a fact.
Does the bill, Dennis, does the bill also then cater for a looking into the real state of the situation? I think you may have alluded to that, whereby somebody may say, well, I can't pay. But then is there provision whereby we say, okay, can we be sure that you actually can't, or does it take your word for it that you actually can't at that moment?
So that's policy framework, which comes at the ministerial level. So once the law is passed, it's going to be sent to the relevant ministry for them to develop a policy framework. So if Parliament were to approve this bill and Senate the same, and the President assents to it and becomes law, then the ministry is going to develop a framework, a policy framework that can be adopted across board in the health facilities to make sure it addresses those issues.
Okay.
I want to look at the court orders that have been given with regard to several matters that have gone court, And one would say that hospitals can just read the precedents that have been said before and the pronouncement of judicial officers on the same. But here we are, where we see hospitals still continue to perpetrate the same mistake over and over and over again. But I want to tie it together with institutions that oversee hospitals, so KMPDC, and their role in ensuring that such cases seems to be a story in hospitals, because we don't have to get here. It is it's just in terms of decency and being humane when you're dealing with individuals who have no option but to come to hospital because I'm sick. I need critical care. Where do I go? I need to go to a hospital, but I've been denied the services. So then, in terms of, does the bill speak to, or does it rope in institutions that are in charge of overseeing how hospitals operate? And if not, perhaps maybe in future, in amendments, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't rope in liability, or rather extend liability to institutions that are supposed to oversee. And I believe that hospitals were taking advantage of this because it had not been codified into law.
Okay.
You know, there was a precedent, the judicial precedent and all that. And they know that they shouldn't, you know. And the courts are clear. And they know that if they go to court, they're going to lose the case. Mater Hospital has lost such a case. Kenyatta University Teaching and Research and Referral Hospital has lost the matter. Kenyatta National Hospital has lost the matter. Karen Hospital has lost such a matter. I mean, they all know, right? Yeah. But then because it had not been codified into law, they were just really merely taking advantage of that. We haven't roped in bodies that oversee because we expect that liabilities like direct and vicarious. Like in terms of, let's say, your boss gives you instructions. And we understand some of these medical officers, they want to admit emergency healthcare patients. They would want to even release the bodies of loved ones. But then the people overseeing the facilities, whether it is maybe in a supervisor role, or maybe the owner of a healthcare facility, or there's someone who's like a CEO, then we have roped those in because then they are the ones who directly are involved in running the facilities. We thought maybe extending it to bodies would be like holding TSC liable for what happens in an institution, like maybe between the head teacher and the teachers. So we thought maybe that's like casting the net too wide, and they might not even be aware. But someone running a facility is the one who says, no, don't admit that patient.
I was speaking in terms of these bodies ensuring that such, and in terms of enforcement, is lacking from their end. So then, how then would we rope them in this conversation to know this is what the law says, this is what the bill says, this is what the courts have said? That lack of enforcement is what we're seeing today, that hospitals are doing what? Are doing what they ought not to do.
I believe when we have it, when we finally have the bill, assented into law, then they're going to be ensuring that they communicate to their members just to make sure they stay out of the fines and all that.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, we're talking with Kirinyaga woman rep Njeri Maina, and we're looking at the bill, Care Now, Pay Later. Let's come in and look at then what a health insurance scheme by government should actually be doing that could probably circumvent some of these issues in the long run. It's 27 minutes to 10 o'clock. We'll continue with the conversation when we come back from this. Don't go away.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Tunasema hakuna kungoja tena, watu wangu. Tutazungumzia ligi inayopendwa kote duniani, the best of the best, ligi ya EPL. Simu mwaka 2025-26 ndani ya Radio Maisha kama kawaida.
Wajua tumesubiria sana. Mambo yamebadilika. Kuna Sesko, kuna mchezaji kwenda kujina Gyökeres. Ekitike anawaka moto jamani. Taswira yote tunachora ndani ya Radio Maisha, maanake tunasema kwamba ndo nyumbani kwa ligi kuu ya Uingereza.
Tuko mbele pamoja. Yaani ligi msimu huu atakayeshinda simjui, lakini mwenye hata shinda namjua.
Hey, Radio Maisha, home of EPL.
Finish kumalo, round this tuna finish kumalo, tuna finish kumalo, ubash to life tuna malo, tuna finish kumalo. Kwa Yesu kuna bamba, nilimdigi kwa shini kwetu kubamba. plate ya mi test gotta hack it. I spread bread pate nguvu gotta pack it. Napaka nyweki design ya mogoro. Blue band, Juni natural cocoa. 5 vitamins una grow plus ni tam na ni tuna hack snack na ki blue band choco for your growth.
Bells will always have news of tradition and things we need to follow. The trading bell, however, will always have news of precision, where industry makers and market movers have their stories to tell.
We want to exit some of the companies to the capital market so that we can deepen the market.
The thing about leadership is you're doing everything, but I think what's not seen is it's a very strong support team that on a day-to-day basis enables you to do well.
The performance of the shilling has a direct bearing on inflation because we import quite significantly the amount of goods that we consume in this country.
So tune in every Tuesday night for your dose of the trading bell, where industry movers and market shakers have their stories to tell that happened right here at the Bauhaus.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Finding myself asking that if we had a health system that was working properly, and this is not to say that effort has not been made or whatever the case may be, but if it was working properly, can we say 1 + 1 = 2, whereby if it was working properly, people would not need then to be in a situation where they couldn't pay for emergency care or any kind of care for that matter, and or then would not be able to care for their needs in a health facility that unfortunately led to that ended up in death? If SHA, because that's what we're dealing with right now, was functioning optimally, would we be in a position where we would have to have a bill in Parliament that then insists that facilities let people get the care that they need without demanding in that manner? Would we?
I do think that it's agreeable, like across board, that SHA has a downtime that sometimes prevents access to emergency care, you know. And in some cases, the payments made are inadequate in terms of the need and the monies availed to the hospital facilities. So there would be no need for that if our healthcare system was working, if it was catering for every Kenyan, like universal health coverage is supposed to. But then because it isn't, Parliament has to step in and ensure that we cushion Kenyans who come from very underprivileged backgrounds from the shortfalls of our healthcare system. Which is why I've said that we have had discussions on the floor that we need to have a long-term objective to sort out the issues in healthcare. Unfortunately, health is now devolved, so it's a whole different monster. If a governor decides that they won't prioritize health issues, equipping the hospital facilities and all that, even with funding from national government, we're still going to have those issues of access to healthcare as provided by the Constitution in Article 43. So these are, I think, conversations that will be had from time to time, and it's not something that can be done overnight. We can't see a radical shift in regard to that. But I think we build on this. We do the little we can right now as we build on the long term and work out to straighten those issues.
I mean, Kenyans out here will definitely welcome this because it is something that they deal with on a daily basis. Been to 1, 2, 3 harambes, to bail out a family whose loved one admitted, passed in hospital, bills not enough. It's a story that touches on each and every single Kenyan. Are you looking to pushing this even further in terms of health committee? We know that health is devolved, fine, but we have the health ministry as well. So just in terms of tying all the nuts and bolts, the loose ends, to ensure that the services that Kenyans are using, SHA, is working, to avoid a situation where you're forced to come up with such a bill to address a problem that would have been addressed if the healthcare system was working? Are we looking at health committee, ministry, everybody to just be part and parcel of the conversation? Because fine, this is the short-term goal, right? But the long-term as well has to start.
I believe that, the hindrances to us having that conversation is the political, alliances in parliament that people subscribe to. That sometimes you might introduce a topic, pro-government members of parliament will say SHA is working. And the reality is different. The lived experience of many Kenyans is different. And it is very unfortunate sometimes to see a parliament that maybe might have or interpret issues depending on their political allegiance. And that is why I'm saying this is a conversation that can't be done overnight because of such issues. And I would be lying to Kenyans if I were to come here and tell them, we're going to work this out. I mean, if I were to give such a statement on the floor about SHA, I'd have responses from people who feel maybe that I'm attacking the government. But I'm just saying the truth. I'm representing the people of Kirinyaga and Kenyans at large because that is their lived, actual, factual experience. And it is unfortunate to see that. But I do hope that we can find consensus in terms of matters health. It is very critical that we sort out the health issues, just like we need to do with the education sector. We're saying that children cannot go to grade 10 because, parents are not able to pay. It is not that they do not want to pay. The capitation that is sent to schools is not sent on time, is not enough. Then we say, all kids should now go to school. They go there, they don't have uniform, they don't have books, they don't have the necessary material or environment for learning. So these are issues we must agree to have a consensus despite our political affiliation. We should not politicize them, in my perspective. But we have these challenges of sorting them out because we see them sometimes from our political alliances.
Do we, again, come to a place whereby there's an understanding that what we're doing it seems like there's top layer treatment to something that has eaten into the bone, right? And that whereby we can circumvent with action like this bill is critical, because then what it does is that it ensures that this pain and suffering that has already been brought about by a system that unfortunately has malfunctioned at some point then can be stopped temporarily by this bill, because that's what it is. It is a stopgap measure, Mheshimiwa, that people will not be chased away from hospital, that people's loved ones will not be detained, they can go and bury them. But I'm still so concerned about the root cause that then is, like you say, by and large undealt with, and that you can do what you can in the meantime to sort that out. But then when we look at governance as a whole, when we look at implementation of policy as a whole, then there are other stakeholders that need to be pulled into this conversation to say, guys, that we can sort out the problem now, but the banks of this thing will burst. But what if you didn't have a Njeri Maina who brought out a bill? Then what happens? You see? And what if it's Kirinyaga today, but and this will cover the country, but then what happens when you're not in the position whereby you will legislate at this level? What if you're doing something else tomorrow? And so are these not the deeper issues that then need to be tackled across the board? This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the nitty-gritty. It is not the politic. It is not the rallying and all of this. This is human life and the very things that a government has promised to deliver to people, and also then through elected representatives to make sure that they legislate on, right? So Kenyans will be saying, so what if there's no Njeri Maina?
And that's what I'm saying. I do hope that we can have a consensus on these issues, despite our political affiliations or where we subscribe to or which party we were elected on, whether we are the ruling party or the opposition or the minority. I do hope that, because these are human issues, they're issues that people actually deal with on a day-to-day basis. They are not issues that have been created or perception, and they're core issues to the existence of human beings. So for me, I think I do have hope that we can, maybe in future have better leadership, And also, it also calls for Kenyans when they're electing members of parliament, don't just vote for people because they've given you 200 Kenya shillings, 300 Kenya shillings, or whatever amount they give you. Vote for someone that you've actually evaluated and you have a semblance of belief that they can represent and articulate your issues on the floor of parliament. And if we have a parliament that works for the people, that thinks about the welfare of the people, then I don't think that we would even be having all these myriad of issues that are resolved. But then that parliament is voted for by Kenyans. So Kenyans are also culpable in voting for members for various reasons. For maybe perhaps they got handouts, and we are seeing the political climate right now. So it is also upon Kenyans to vote for members of parliament that can sort out the healthcare issues, that can sort out the...
How has the bill been received by the House? Is there enthusiasm? Because, again, whenever there's problems, who do Kenyans run to?
Yeah.
Time where members of parliament are invited to do the same. How has it been received? As well as there's just a question that has been asked there. Are we looking to also having conversation on including private hospitals? Because what happens in a situation where the only place I can go is a private facility?
The bill has been received by members very well. There was robust debate about it. Actually, the time allocated was not even enough to debate the bill because members really wanted to, contribute to this. And also, given the background that, like you've said, majority of members of parliament have participated in harambees for hospital bills. And it is one of the things that keep coming up, like you keep being invited for harambees for medical bills. So it is something that members of parliament are also aware of or alive to. And that support across board, both sides of the aisle, and I really, really spoke to their hearts that this was not, let's not politicize this, and they really received it and supported it. The contributions on the floor, there was not a single one that did not support the bill. It has already passed the second reading, so it's now coming for committee stage, where, like I have confirmed, there are members who intimated that they would like to recommend further amendments to ensure that it captures private and public facilities. Because like you've said, even private facilities, in my perspective, should also be liable if they do not provide emergency care.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously things are moving, and we get into here where we've previously seen that things that attach to the very livelihood of people then become currency that is played on the political scene all the time. How do we divorce the two?
I think how we divorce the two is looking at things from an objective perspective. And sometimes it's unfortunate, because I know there are lobby groups also for these facilities. And sometimes maybe they'll give incentives, to maybe have some clauses dropped. And that happens, it's not spoken about, but it does happen. And I've told you that I have taken 3 years to have this bill even come, like just be there on the floor of parliament. So I think how we divorce this, it all boils down to like the individual perspective. What can you do and what can't you do? Like how far will you go to protect your people and represent them on the floor of the National Assembly? There are people who won't cross that river for their people. There are members who will. So for me, I don't think it's something that I can speak from a general perspective, like as a whole house, because it boils down to an individual in terms of separating those two things from an objective perspective and knowing that this is an issue that I have to actually address and deal with. Because like I've said, members of parliament attend several harambees that, arranged to raise funds for medical bills. So it boils down to you as a person. I brought this bill because I as a person, I worked with families. I felt that pain. it wasn't something that I have experienced personally, but I lived that pain through the people that I represented doing pro bono work. So it just boils down to how objective are you as a member to separate those two issues.
I want to ask a question that perhaps my board are being uncomfortable, but you got to Parliament 2022, came up with this bill. Immediately you got in, and it's taken 3 years for it to end up where it is today. This sends a concern that which concerns Mwananchi is seemingly not of utmost importance to many in that house. Would that be the case? Or what are the bottlenecks that you went through for the bill to take that long? Because we remember there are other issues that have been rushed on the floor of the House, have been fast-tracked. So why has this taken that long? What are some of the bottlenecks that you've gone through for it to end up here?
Private members' bills are always, that is very hard to push, because it is not a government bill, it is not a committee bill, so it doesn't emanate from the executive. So you find that they're not really prioritized in terms of coming to the floor, which is something that I know hopefully if I get to the 14th Parliament, if I'm there, I really would want to push for an amendment that members can vote to agree that this is a private member's bill, but we need to fast track it within this timeline, or within, let's say, we've seen bills passed within 10 days, 14 days, 5 days, right?
Yep.
But then for private members' bills, it takes forever to even have it on the floor. I had to defend it, I think, back and forth between the committees, and that is the budget committee and the health committee, 10 times. Redacted some of the clauses, agreeing on the wording, of course, like I've said, the lobby groups are also now coming on board, also that push and pull, between how do we word this, who do we hold liable, how do we describe what is an emergency service, or maybe an emergency case in terms of a medical issue. So it took so long because it's a private members bill. It's not prioritized. The House Business Committee is the one that prioritizes or schedules the business for the day. But I'm very grateful because we've been able to fast track it, because it came first reading, second reading. I've really lobbied the people who sit in the House Business Committee to have it come up for the committee stage, which hopefully will be coming maybe sometime next week. And that is an issue generally as a parliament we need to look at in terms of why private members' bills take too long to come to the floor, even when they are addressing key concerns for Kenyans.
But you have conversations with your colleagues, because you know why it's important for also the people to understand the psyche of those who represent them. Because we can be here thinking that members of parliament who represent the people are on the same wavelength, and it could be the farthest thing from the truth. So then what would make sense beyond properly representing the people that you said you would, except from prioritizing the things that happen directly on their existence? Do you understand it? What do you, where do they sit in terms of, okay, can you say, well, actually this is not of priority, this is, and we can actually do the business, move it and go on to the next?
I think you're asking that question in regard to the business of the House, the House Business Committee. So it is not a committee of the whole House. It is a select committee. It's a select 11-member, 10-member committee. So it is select persons who sit in that committee. So maybe perhaps other members would really want to see this a certain bill fast tracked, but then we don't have any participatory powers in regard to that, which is why I say that if I come back to the 14th Parliament, I'd want to amend the standing orders to provide or to have a provision that members can actually vote that this certain bill is critical, that we need to fast track it and give it a timeline, let's say 15 days to conclude it. So if the entire floor of the House is now participating in deciding that this bill is critical, we are voting for it, then it becomes a bit easier to even rate the oomph in which members want to represent their constituents. But then if it's a select committee, of course, it keeps us locked out. So we cannot really decide that, this is a bill that we really want to see given attention and coming on the floor as soon as possible. So you really do have to have, there's just a lot of bureaucracy around private members' bills that we need to alleviate that, because at the end of the day, I think it would be unfair even to the people that I represent or someone else represents if they cannot articulate issues on the floor and have a legislative agenda passed within a specific timeline. We know that elections are coming up next year. If this bill were not to pass, if it were to even delay, I'd have to restart it all over again.
You're kidding?
Yes. That is a procedure. It doesn't once the session ends, the 13th Parliament closes and we have the 14th Parliament, I'd have to initiate it again. And imagine it has to do both houses, the lower and the upper house. So the issue with members' bills is so much bureaucracy around it, and we need the whole house involved in terms of key integral bills that concern the people. That's my perspective.
That also just points to the fact that if you look at the roles, representation, oversight, and the legislation, and these squarely, if a private member's bill would take this long, then Mwananchi would ask, what did you do? I did not see the legislation aspect of it. I did not see you represent me, because then again, it is the bureaucracy that is within Parliament that makes it difficult for legislators to perform. And knowing that very well, then should this be a conversation in the House in terms of the need to break down the bureaucracies to fast track this, so that at the end of the day, when you're asked for your report card, you can differentiate yourself from that member of Parliament who did not have anything? Because right now, I'm sorry, everyone will just pull every member of Parliament in the same category. They are not working.
Mzalendo did us. They did a number on us. Mzalendo has and it's quite unfortunate, because you log in and you just access and you check your member of Parliament and you can see the number of times it's spoken in the last year, the number of times it's spoken since they actually joined Parliament. And you really do have to be consistent. You have to be a fighter. I would have given up. I had to go back and forth between committees. I had to go humble. You really have to beseech the committee members to indulge you. You have to lobby. There's a lot of lobbying that goes into it. So if you're someone that gives up easily, you're going to be really, I'm not suffering, so why should I do this, right? So you have to have a different kind of drive to even get a bill on the floor. I have two bills. I have that and the KSL amendment bill. It's never even come up for the first reading.